Hello and welcome back to the Limitless Podcast. So glad you are here. If you have been following this podcast for a while, I want to thank you for being a faithful follower. And if you are new to this podcast, I want to welcome you. This podcast, yes, we talk about marriage, but what I share on this podcast and the healing that I help women walk through will change every relationship in your life, whether it's your business, your friendship, relationship with your family, with money, etc. So welcome. I am so glad and honored that you are here. I'm excited about today's podcast. Today's podcast it's not a new revelation, but it's a revelation that I had about how much I've evolved and grown and how much our marriage has evolved and grown. You know, when you live in a situation day after day, you don't necessarily see the growth that happens. But when you take a look back at where you were and take and compare that to where you are today, you see the growth is quite impressive, is quite phenomenal. And the thing that I was thinking about today was how I actually stopped trying to fix my husband. So I basically retired myself from trying to change my husband. I thought for years and years and years that if only my husband would change, then I would be happy. If only he would listen better, then our marriage would be amazing. If only he would stop shutting down, then I wouldn't feel alone. If only, if only, if only. And maybe you can resonate with that. If only he would do this, if only he would stop doing that, everything would be better in our marriage. But what I didn't realize at the time is when I was saying if only he would, or if only he did, or if only he would stop, was basically me saying he's not enough. And that was the newest revelation. I was basically telling, as I was trying to fix everything about him, I was basically projecting onto him that he was not enough. And that really kind of made my heart hurt a little bit. How often do we actually realize that when we're trying to change someone, we are projecting that story of, you know what, you're not enough the way you are for me to love you the way you are, or for me to be happy in this marriage or this situation. But what I recognized is when I took a look back at where we were many years ago before the healing journey began, is I didn't actually see myself as being controlling. I saw myself as being helpful and insightful, as you know, kind of doing the work, the investigative work. But underneath that helpfulness was actually me, my nervous system screaming, "I don't feel safe." And when we don't feel safe, we immediately go into this control mode. And you may recognize this in you, and I hope that you do recognize this with you, because when you do start recognizing the pattern, you can break the pattern. But typically, what starts to happen is we begin to feel unsafe in the relationship. So when we're looking at our spouse and we're thinking, if only he would change this, then this would be better. And basically, what we're saying is, you know, we're reflecting on them, you're not enough. But we're saying inside of ourselves is, I'm not safe being who I am when you're being the way that you are. And when we don't feel safe, we immediately go into this mode and we don't recognize it. We go into this mode where we start controlling things around us, because when we don't feel safe, automatically our nervous system wants to go and make us safe by controlling people, by controlling the situation, by controlling our environment, by doing more. And we basically shut ourselves off. We shut ourselves off from receiving love. We shut ourselves off for amazing communication. We basically have built the wall of protection around us. And we cause them to walk on eggshells going into that controlling mode. Not that we're trying to be controlling, but I want you to understand you want to be safe. So the only thing that you know to do, we revert back to when we were a little girl, is the only thing we know to do is just control our environment so that we can feel at peace. But what starts to happen when we go into that control mode? We don't recognize it. We're going into that control mode to keep the peace, but we actually lose the connection. We lose the connection even more. That was me. That was exactly me. But you know what? One day I remember we were in the middle of an argument and I heard that voice say inside of me, if only he would not get defensive when we had a discussion, then we could reconcile these arguments. But he gets so defensive and it causes so much defensiveness in me. And I caught myself in that moment saying, if only he would. And it hit me. I was waiting for him to change so that I didn't have to face the parts of me, which honestly, I didn't know I needed to face the parts of me that were still unhealed. But I was waiting for him to change. I was not taking a look at my part in this. I was just believing his defensiveness was causing my reactiveness. But what was causing the reactiveness? The reactiveness was the wound within me. And I wasn't taking a look at that part. It's so easy for us to point the finger at other people when we really need to be taking a look at ourselves. And that's really what everything that I do in my business, it's taking full responsibility for who we are and our own personal healing. And that, my friend, changes everything. But, owning and looking at those parts of me that were unhealed, it was that little girl. At that moment when we were in this argument, I felt like this is not Deanna Heron, the adult Deanna Heron. I'm acting like a younger version of myself. And it was that younger version of myself, that little girl who never felt seen, never felt heard. And I was trying to control the man in front of me, hoping that he would give me whatever it was that I never got when I was a little girl. And that realization, like, literally cracked me wide open because he wasn't the problem. My projections were the problem. My projection of he needed to change and that he wasn't enough the way he was. So here I wanted to give you four shifts that changed everything for me. And this is truly the steps that I walked through in my healing, through lots of trial and error, through lots of doing things that actually didn't work. So my job on this earth is to go through things in my life so that I can teach others how to go through things in a more simpler way than what I walked through personally. And so the things that have really helped me the most in my healing, and these are the processes that I use with my clients, are these four shifts. And I'm going to share them with you. So if you are not driving, if you have an opportunity, I would write these down because these completely changed my marriage. They're not strategy. It's actually soul work. I'm going to talk to you about soul work. So the first thing that I did was I uncovered why I stopped voicing my needs. So why was it that I at some point just kept quiet to keep the peace? And I realized that I had learned early on that it was safer for me to be quiet than risk being misunderstood, or it was safer for me to be quiet than for me not to be liked or loved. I'm pausing there because I want that to sit with you because most of us feel that if I'm just quiet, then I'm not going to rock the boat and I'll still be liked. Because if I voice something and it's too much, then I might be misunderstood or I might not be liked. But the silence doesn't create peace, it actually creates massive distance. Massive distance. And in your marriage, it slowly erodes, has an erosive effect on the intimacy. So I began to practice vulnerability again and saying, this is what I need. This is what I need. Even when my voice shook, I would speak up and share what I needed. I am responsible You are responsible for voicing your words, voicing your needs. You are not responsible for their reaction. And one of the things that I teach my clients is because most women have a hard time using their voice. One of the things that I teach is I want you just to use your voice and not in a defensive way, but this is what I need. And because we're not trying to control his reaction, what we're trying to do is get our bodies used to voicing actually what we need, what our desires are. And that will give you back your power because what happens when you don't use your voice, you've given your power to the other person because you're waiting on the reaction. You have already been thinking about what their reaction may be. And so that has your power. This journey is all about your power, standing in your power. And when you have your power, and I'm not talking about bold, it is bold, but not an aggressive kind of power. But it's speaking your voice, letting your partner know what you need, letting your boss know what you need, let your children know what you need. It's using that precious God-given voice that helps you stay in your power. Number two, I healed that scared little girl in me who never felt seen, heard, or held. She was actually the one that was driving my reactions, flooding my nervous system every time we argued. And I don't know what you know about healing that inner child, but it is so imperative that you learn to heal that part of you that was wounded at that certain age because that is stuck in your nervous system and integrate her with you and you with her. It's very imperative to do that. And once you start to understand the process and how it really causes massive healing, and that old story of the wound starts to fade. And so this piece is really imperative, and it will change everything. It will absolutely change everything. And I was able to meet her with love and compassion. And she's I still have a picture of her on my desk, um, because she's a little girl that just needed to feel loved. She needed to be held. She needed to be heard. She needed to feel seen. And so for me, that picture of her on my desk is like, I see you, babe. I'm holding you. I hear you. I hear what you need. And we learn to reparent that little child because we're much more mature and we're much more emotionally intelligent once you start doing this inner work. So when I started to meet her with compassion and healed that side of my story, I stopped expecting my husband to make me feel safe. That was my job. And I remember the day when I told my husband, and it was a realization for me, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I have been making you responsible to make me feel safe. And I actually said to him, that is my job. And it was just such an aha moment for me. Number three, the third thing was I regulated my nervous system. And your nervous system, I want you to understand, is if you've been through trauma and that your nervous system is stuck, you're constantly looking behind your back to see if something is negative is going to happen. You're kind of stuck in a pattern of believing that something is going to fall, something is going to go wrong. You're stuck in that pattern, and it's that fight or flight constantly, which we're not made to be in that fight or flight on a regular basis. It actually does so much damage to your body internally. But more than anything, you just can't connect when you're in that survival mode because you're controlling your environment, right? You're controlling everything around you, and you're so laser focused on keeping yourself safe, you can't connect because your thoughts are elsewhere. So I learned to regulate my nervous system. I learned not to be reactive. I learned to not take things personally. And I began to breathe easier, stay in a calm, steady state, and trust. trust is a huge part of a regulated nervous system. And it wasn't about being perfect. It wasn't about being calm and peaceful and namaste all the time. It wasn't like that because there have been times when I've stepped out of that for a little bit, but I recognize it, especially during this move, there were a couple of days and I'm like, oh my word, where is this coming from? And it was because there were so many decisions of unpacking and where to put a box and where to put this and doing my business and setting up my office. There was so much. What are we going to eat tonight? Oh my gosh, we don't have pots and pans. There was so much to think about that my body actually went back into that default that I learned as a little girl. Okay, I gotta control. And it was so uncomfortable because I hadn't been there in a very, very long time. But I was able to get myself back out. And the way that you get yourself out of that, I call it the tornado. It's just a tornado, like you can't even think straight. It's not about being perfect and controlling and having it all together and doing more. It's actually just about being present and recognizing the reason why we go into that tornado is because we've brought a past story into the present moment and a future worry into the present moment. And that's the tornado spinning. That is your thoughts just going round and round and round. And so you go into that control mode. And you'll recognize it once you regulate your nervous system. You may flip flop, every now and then, but it will be so uncomfortable to you until you finally uh, just become so calm and so regulated. And again, it's not that you're not going to be upset. It's not that you are a robot. It's nothing like that. But it's just I trust and I'm present in this moment. The fourth thing that I did is I used breath work to release the emotions that were stuck in my body. There are so many different ways that you can release those emotions. Breath work is the go-to for me. Today, I actually use a lot of different ones, just depending on how I'm feeling and what feels like what I need. Because I've been doing this for so long, I've tried a lot of different things that I really, really love. So I do breath work. Sometimes I will do tapping, meditation. I'll go outside. There's lots of different things that I will do. But the emotions that are stuck in your body, they're unspoken resentment, their disappointment, their fears, and for me, it just feels like a tightness in my chest, a tightness in my shoulders and neck, which that almost has completely gone away since I've regulated my nervous system. When I gave those emotions that I never spoke, that I never felt, when I gave them permission to move, my body started to soften and my compassion returned. Whoa, that's a crazy. That is so crazy because we don't even recognize that we've lost that compassion. We've lost that ability to actually connect in a deep, intimate love, not just with our spouse, but with our children, with our friendships, all of that. So those are the four things. So healing me actually changed the way I saw him, though. Not only did it change me, it changed the way that I saw him. I stopped seeing the man who wasn't doing enough and started seeing the little boy inside him who also wanted to be safe and loved and held. And that was a difference maker. That was a difference maker because my heart actually like totally opened up for him. And that was the moment that everything shifted for me. Because when you change the lens, you can change the love. So the lens and the way that I viewed him changed everything for me. And you don't heal your marriage by fixing your partner. We know this. We know this. It is exhausting and is futile, that it will never work. We can never change our partner. And think about all the times that you actually think over and over and over, if he would only do this differently, if he would only do this, if he would only pick up his socks, if he would only stop chewing so loud, if all those things, it's just that constant barrage of thoughts that are exhausting to you. It's an energy drainer for sure. But the way to actually make a difference in your marriage, to make a difference in your life, is to heal yourself and you fix the lens through which you see people through which you see situations through. That lens It's cloudy, and you gotta take some Windex and wipe it off. And that is your inner healing. That's your inner healing. So what I'm describing, this is the heart of the conscious marriage method. And it's where we do the inner work. We reparent the parts of ourselves that felt so unseen for so long. We regulate our nervous system so your body feels safe to receive love and to love again. And most importantly, all of these are important, but most importantly is we write the stories that say, if he would only change, then I could finally relax. We rewrite those stories because inside that story is another story about you. And when you rewrite those stories, that's what makes my work so different is we actually go down to the core of what the issue is, the core wound, and we change that core wound. That is my sweet spot. I can figure that out within a matter of minutes just by listening. So you don't need to change him first. You don't need to wait for him to want to read the book or go to a marriage counselor. You don't have to wait. You can do your own inner healing. And when you heal the energy and you heal your energy, the relationship naturally reorganizes itself around peace. Naturally. So if this resonates with you and you're like, okay, it's time. It's time for me to do the work. It's time for me to finally take my power back. It's time for me to start using my voice because I've got so much resentment built up. If you're experiencing that, conscious marriage method, it's open. And the doors will be closing in just a few days, and then we go waitlisted only until the next program. So you are worth it, my friend. If you're feeling the tug, it's time. Let's do this together. I only allow 15 women in the group because I love for it to be small and intimate so that I can coach each one of you. So if that speaks to you, I have the link for more information in the show notes, and I would love to have you. God bless you, and I'll see you next week.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Limitless Podcast. If you loved it, and I know you did, make sure to like and subscribe and share it with others. Help us get the message out. See you next week.